that is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons death may die. Welcome to the culmination of 44 years of misery. The official Dave Pybus Podcast. Life is a hideous thing.
The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little. But someday the piecing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age.
I'm a child of the nihilistic, postmodern condition referred to as the 1980s. By saying that, try to imagine the fear and anxiety of a late Cold War generation living in the shadow of the bomb. It was a bleak reality. Everything we ever knew existed could be blown to dust with the sirens of the 4-minute warning. I found most of my major life influences formed around then. Before the dark times. Before the internet. And so it seems the world is now at the brink of fully realizing George Orwell's Big Brother of 1984. Mass order, programmed with heavy antidepressants, rigid work schedules and subtle intimidation, all the while masquerading under a word called democracy. How cool.
Rebel if you can. They already know you want to.
I was introduced to the writings of H.P. Lovecraft around my mid-teens while still at school. I went on to find his books were something of a mystery in my local library, as most of the copies seemed to have been stolen. In this short period, and after waiting for months for copies to show up, I discovered a band from America by the name of Metallica, who seemed to champion his writing. Well, this just added to my curiosity. Their bass player, Cliff Burton, seemed to be a definitive driving force when it came to cool shit. Along with Lovecraft, he introduced me to another lifelong love affair with the punk band The Misfits. That September back in 1986, I got to see Metallica play for the first time. The memory seems rather hazy now. Unfortunately, 16 days later, Cliff was killed in a tragic bus accident in Sweden. I'll be forever in his debt.
What a mad life. He murders some part of the world. These are the pale deaths, which men call their lives. All this I cannot bear to witness any longer. Cannot the kingdom of salvation take me home?
Metallica track To Live Is To Die. Back in 2009, I was asked to make a small contribution to the book To Live Is To Die, The Life and Death of Cliff Burton, written by the now editor of bass guitar magazine Joel McIver. To date, author of 26 books including biographies of Black Sabbath, Slayer, Ice Cube and Queens of the Stone Age to name a few, his best-selling Justice for All, The Truth About Metallica was first published in 2004. Me and Joel worked together a few times in the past, doing interviews for Bass Guitar Mag. I asked Joel to be the first guest on Life is a Hideous Thing. Why? Well, I wanted someone that was kind of related to the subject matter with Cliff Burton. After reading the book for the second time recently, I realised how sad the whole story was about Cliff. And so me and Joel are going to kind of try and cover that in the conversation we've got now.
No kittens were harmed during the recording of this podcast.
How you doing? You alright?
Yeah, a little bit nervous. I don't know why.
Ah!
I just want it to go well this time.
Why don't we record 2 minutes and then play it back? Yeah.
I'm recording it now, so I can just stop it now, and if it's done it, it's done it. So
In what meeting? Sorry.
it's fine, mate. I was just it might actually work with the camera on.
Alright. You can see me stuffing my face.
Brilliant. Because I wanted to show you something.
Uh-huh.
I found my old Metallica program.
Brilliant.
For the tour.
Amazing.
That's the Injustice for All tour one. And that's Damage Inc., which was Cliff's, the show with Cliff.
Oh, I missed that. Like a cock. I never got to see Cliff.
So this is, let's go back to when you first ever not got into metal, because I guess that was like for me, that was a natural progression of you got into AC/DC and Black Sabbath, and then obviously thrash metal started, and then you just...
Actually, I have a slightly interesting story, which is that until I was 17, all I listened to was Duran Duran and Soft Cell and kind of 80s pop. Really, literally, till I was 17, till 1988.
Do you want me to edit that bit out?
No, let's go for it. Fuck it. No, I've said it loads of interviews and whatever. No, it's fine. And a mate of mine played me the Garage Days EP.
Yeah.
Which just blew my mind. Absolutely, blew my mind. I had heard metal before that, but I just wasn't that interested. I'd heard the wrong stuff, I think, looking back. And as soon as I heard Metallica, I couldn't get enough of them. And the minutes after that, it was Slayer, and then it was Anthrax, and then it was straight into the death metal wave a couple of years later.
Yeah, because
I had this kind of weird road to Damascus conversion. So I've never claimed to be one of those guys that was listening to Judas Priest when I was 12 or Maiden when I was 11, because I wasn't. I was listening to bloody Soft Cell. But I still love stuff,
It's funny that I've got a friend who used to he used to be in a band in the 80s who had a couple of top 40 hits, my friend Brian, who did the background music for this.
Oh yeah.
And he knows Dave Ball and Mark Armand. He was on tour with him when that story broke about Mark. They were in New York.
What, the scurrilous story about his stomach getting pumped?
Yeah, and my friend Brian just insists that he just laughed it off. How rock and roll stories go about, biting heads off and all that shit. But
great story. I think Stuart McConey made it up, didn't he?
I don't know exactly where it came from, but my friend Brian obviously said it was a load of bullshit. Some people in the press didn't particularly like Mark, and so they just spread a rumor that he was, weird. And
it wasn't even that they didn't like him; they just made up a funny story.
Yeah.
No, the reason why I say Stuart McConey is that he's the one who invented the story about Bob Holness playing saxophone on Baker Street. That's what I'm thinking. Which is a brilliant story.
Never heard that.
Have you not? I never heard that one. That was brilliant for years. Bob Holness of Countdown. Was it? No, what was it? What was this thing that he did?
Blockbuster.
Every interview he was asked about whether he really played the sax on Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty, because it's just made up by Stuart McConey. So no, it wasn't Stuart McConey. I don't think, it made up the Mark Armand stomach pump story, but it was like that. It was one of those sort of meant to be funny, actually went down as truth, in a lot of people's heads. Yeah. But I interviewed Mark Armand a couple of years ago. Wonderful bloke, absolutely fantastic interview, a real hero of mine. And I've done all the 80s lot, all the Duran Duran lot. There's a big old video of me on YouTube interviewing John Taylor of Duran Duran at the London Bass Guitar Show last year for like 45 minutes.
Wow.
But metal was a huge thing for me because I hadn't really heard that much of it beforehand. I hadn't gone through the usual Kiss AC/DC route to get to Maiden and Motorhead and whatever. it was all the more kind of stunning when it hit me.
Yeah. I think the first time I ever heard of Metallica, and this is obviously like, I had a friend at school who was really into underground music, and as soon as a band put a first album out, it wasn't on a demo anymore, he ditched them. So he had No Life Till Leather demo. And then my older cousin, she went with this biker guy to Donington in '85 when Metallica played for the first time at Donington, just after Ride the Lightning came out. And she came back and said, like, there's a new band, that played at Donington, like, this weekend, and I think you might like them. And it was obviously Metallica. That was before Master of Puppets. I got to see them the year after, and obviously I saw them in '87 when they played at Donington with Jason.
I'm jealous. I could never have, I don't think I had the kind of upbringing where I would have been allowed to go off to Donington, at the tender age of 14 or whatever. So I kind of, envy you that.
Yeah. My dad took us to see AC/DC when I was 12.
Brilliant.
But he took my younger brother who was 5. So,
it's the kind of upbringing I'm trying to give my kids. We do gigs, we do festivals. They stick some ear defenders on, and we go and see the band. Doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
As long as it's not totally loud and it's going to hurt them. And as long as the ear defenders take off the treble and the snare drums and the cymbals, it's not going to injure them. And they're just going to see an exciting thing. So I fully applaud your dad, mate, for doing that. That's very impressive.
That wasn't my first gig. Scorpions was the first. But I must admit, I found the whole thing really intimidating. The bikers, the smell, I don't think it was the volume, it was the vibrations of the whole venue I thought was going to collapse. I was just so timid and scared. I found the whole thing to be a little bit scary until I was older.
Well, I don't know if scared is the right word, but I like walking into a place that's reverberating with a PA. And you feel that kind of sense of, whoa. It's a kind of sense of shock and awe, It's not, I wouldn't say it's fear as such, but I've never lost that. I love doing that still, to this day.
As a bass player, I did that in intention now.
Yeah, me too. You want to make people's stomachs kind of quiver, don't you, when you play a note?
I always said that, like, bass players shouldn't be heard, they should be felt.
Excellent. I'll use that in the magazine.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've got no one to talk about bass guitar to anymore because I don't play it, but it's retired in the front room.
So, what about you then? You went through. So it was Scorps first, then AC/DC, and then onto Metallica.
Yeah, I had a bit of a break where a couple of years passed. A lot of friends wanted me at school to sort of, let's nick off school and go to Sheffield and see Venom.
Right.
And I was like, okay, kind of badgered into it. And then I think the gig got cancelled in '84. And I was, if I'm honest, I had a ticket, but I was fucking relieved it didn't happen. I don't know why. I just thought it was going to be shit. And it was in Sheffield, it was miles away. For us, that was a really long way away. And so I left it for a couple of years, saw Metallica, and then I saw Twisted Sister like a month after. And to be honest, they remain the best band live I've ever seen.
They were truly amazing, weren't they?
Yeah, well, it was just, I don't know, they were more entertaining as a crowd pleaser. Dee Snider was getting the whole crowd singing fuck you to the government. And I'd never shouted fuck you in public before.
That's the whole PMRC kind of...
yeah, sort of like, people should stand up for rock and roll sort of thing. And it was, I guess Metallica were a little bit going in a different direction where they were more about music than they were about sort of, entertaining the crowd. I was always disappointed after I shouldn't say that really, but I was always disappointed after seeing them. I think I was into more like James's playing, and him having a pot on his arm meant he wasn't playing, so I was disappointed.
Yeah.
And I just remember seeing them on the And Justice for All tour, and it was so fucking loud. I was deaf for like 3 days afterwards. It was unbelievable.
So by then, metal had hit me, and I saw them in Newport. I remember my ticket cost £7.50. Since it was Danzig supporting. They were actually pretty cool, and at the time, and they were absolutely on fire. Jason had everything to prove, and he was running around doing that. The only thing that bugged me slightly was that they had a kind of rehearsed set of errors that they played every night, because people would tell me at previous gigs, they pretended to make that mistake with the intro of that song as well. And they had the little thing where the Justice statue kind of fell apart, and it was just a little bit choreographed for me. But that aside, it was just nuts being able to see them, because that's not a large venue as well. And I realised at the time what a privilege it was. My God, it's a long time ago.
It seems like it. I mean,
are you as old as me? I'm 43.
Yeah, I'm 45 this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just growing my first beard, as you can see.
You look gorgeous, mate. For the benefit of those who can't see Dave, he looks lovely.
I think it's just out of laziness. I'm not trying to be a fashion victim, honest.
Well, this is the reason why we don't have proper office jobs. Or do you? I don't know. Do you have an office? No.
I have a day-to-day job, but I don't work in an office. I don't have to dress in a particular way. I'm sort of behind the scenes, so I can get away with doing whatever I like visually. But yeah, I never fancied having a beard. So never.
Well, you never know. It might stick with you. Might grow. Hey. So
I actually had because obviously we did this last week and it fucked up, and now we're doing it again. I shouldn't maybe admit that, but it's kind of funny. But I had a memory of a tour we did a couple of years ago where there was an older bus driver on tour with us, and he was very nice. And one weekend he had to go home, and his son, he was like 30 years old, came out to cover for him for like a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I used to like sitting up front with the drivers and like watching the road go by till 6 a.m. And you'd get chatting to them. They were totally normal guys. They weren't into bands or anything, no egos. And he was telling me some weird stories. And I remember he was saying that his dad's company years ago had an accident where in abroad the bus crashed and one of the guys in the band got killed.
Yep.
And I realised he was talking about Cliff.
That's mental.
And it was really freaky because in your book you said that the driver's never been revealed.
That's right.
Now, if I'd have realised when the older guy came back on tour, if I'd have like stayed up and chatted to him, I might have got his name out of him. I don't know. I doubt it. But some of the stories the bus driver was telling me was really fucked up.
Well, the company was called something like Len Wright Travel.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was his company, then he was presumably Len Wright. But yeah. Well, when was this? What year was this?
Might be 2005, 6. I mean, it's all hazy back then.
It'd be amazing if the same driver was still working.
Yeah.
20 years after the event.
Well, this guy said he was with the company because that's how he knew the story.
Mm.
But he said that, I don't know, he said they used to get a lot of like jobs for the army where soldiers would get on the tour bus between bases and they'd get so drunk they'd climb out of the top skylight and run across the roof and get back in the front one.
Terrifying.
Down the motorway. And he said one day he saw this stream of like liquid flying down the front stairs and then this fucking headless body came down the stairs. And one of the soldiers had hit a bridge, apparently.
That's a horrible story.
So yeah, I mean, it freaked me out a little bit when this guy actually revealed that his dad had been, was telling him this story without even realising that he knew the guy who had that accident.
Well, it would be interesting to talk to him. So I did the first Metallica book in 2003 and did a lot of work trying to track him down. And the only person I spoke to who actually knew the driver's name was a guy called Martin Hooker, who used to run Music for Nations. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's quite well known. And he said he would just rather not say who it was after all these years. And I said, that's absolutely fine. I respected that. And then I did the book about Cliff Burton 4 years later or 5 years later. And there was no record of the incident at all in the police station at Ljungby, which is the town in Sweden where it took place, because the files have just been either lost or destroyed. I'm not saying there's a huge conspiracy, because there isn't, but there is a debate about what caused the crash. Was it black? Was it driver error? Whatever it was, the bus's right-hand side started dragging on the gravel by the side of the road and caused it to flip over. So something made that happen. And the only person who would really know that, if he remembers all that, would be the driver.
It's funny because I've got on my notes here. I was signed with Martin Hooker to Music for Nations.
Amazing.
And it was weird because I remember when we had the vinyl pressing of Judgment, it came on the same label as the Music for Nations that I had on Master of Puppets. Mm-hmm. And to see my name on the same label was like, wow, I've really made it in the music biz, in my little world.
That's brilliant. I was joking around the other day. The Cannibal Corpse book I wrote recently was released by Metal Blade. So my joke was that I was a Metal Blade signing along with Metallica and Slayer, which is a bit of a laugh.
You mentioned going on tour with Cannibal Corpse for a week.
Yeah.
How roughly did you like it or no?
No, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it, as a job that I do 6 months out of the year like they do. But no, and I was on the Creators tour bus for a few days before Christmas as well. And no, I like the vibe. It's fun. I kind of wish it would be a bit more sort of party central, not so much people sitting around on their phones, but that's the modern world.
Yeah, it seems to be like I said last time, it's more like a library backstage than it is
Which is not necessarily a terrible thing. If you're going to go out and give your all on stage, I understand that you probably do need a slightly relaxed sort of backstage environment. I mean, you would know about this more than me. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I imagine you get sick of tour bus travel after a while, do you not? I mean, isn't it inevitable?
The tour bus was a luxury and you had your own bed. Whereas if you're in the van, you kind of had enough sleeping room for maybe 3-4 people at a time out of, say, 7 of you. So you had to rotate. So there'd be large gaps where you'd be sleeping sat up against an amplifier or something, and you wouldn't really be asleep.
Yeah.
I remember once driving in a van to Paris after a sold-out London show with Anathema, and we woke up somewhere in the middle of France, like next to the motorway, and the driver was asleep outside in his sleeping bag, just laid on the sidewalk. Fucking brutal, man. It was like
his regulation 6 hours or whatever.
Well, he was just tired. I mean, you've been up all night and driving across, Calais and everything, and then getting to Paris. He just needed a I don't know, power nap. But I guess once you get on the tour bus, it's like you've got your own bed, you've got a little bit of privacy in that respect.
Yeah. This is quite luxurious, the ones that I've been on with Cannibal and with Creator. I think the best possible way, I was thinking about being in a band. I was thinking about actually what we were going to talk about today, and I was thinking about how you've been in loads of bands and done loads of travelling. And I write about that world, but I haven't really done much of it. I suppose the best way to be in a band, I'm thinking, is if there's loads and loads of money, like
obviously.
You've all got jobs or whatever, you've all got careers, and you decide every year or something to go on tour for a week or two. You get the best bus. It's a holiday. You rehearse up a few songs and do it properly. You're in a band, but you don't need to make money out of it, so you don't have to worry about, your budget and whatever. And you just go for it and you large it up for 2 weeks and tour. And I know people who do that, actually. They're accountants and whatever who have bands that they do that with. And they're never going to make any money. It's just a sort of holiday that they're paying for. But that's a nice way to do it.
I guess. I mean, I don't ever want to do it ever again.
Well, I'll give it another 5 years. You might get your wanderlust back.
Maybe. I mean, you never say never, but yeah. Right now, I've done it too much. Just need my passport finally expired. So, and then you see all these horror stories on the news about planes crashing and all that crap, and you're thinking, thank fuck I don't have a passport anymore. I don't really want to go anywhere anyway, and it's like new to me to build a relationship around walking distance of where I live. I go to the local pub, got a local job, I've got local friends. It's like I've never had that since I was like mid-20s. It's kind of weird, you know everybody all over the world as such. They become your friends. And the internet's good for that as a respect of staying in touch with them, but I see the internet as being a bit of a negative thing. I don't know why, I don't know.
It has its downside. It's a great source of information and a communication tool, but it does discourage personal interaction, unfortunately.
Complete waste of time.
That's it. Yeah, you could spend your whole life on social networks.
5 hours.
You're not getting anything done. Yeah, and the same with computer games and console games. Fun to do, but what have you actually achieved at the end of it, really?
Is computer games a waste of time?
Well, what do they produce? What have you achieved? I mean, at the end of it, you might... I mean, I play a couple of games from time to time on the PlayStation, and after a few hours of it, then your hand-eye coordination might have improved, and you know how to operate a joystick a bit better than otherwise. But other than that, what have you achieved? just a couple of hours of your life have gone.
I guess you didn't go out and rape anybody or take crack.
No, but I probably would. I don't think that was a preventative measure, playing a game.
It distracted me long enough not to go out and murder someone.
The most debauched I'm likely to get up to is to break into that dangerous second bottle of red wine. I think that's about as far as it goes with me.
And this is a bit of an admission on my first ever podcast, is that I'm actually crap at drinking now. Yeah, after half a bottle of red wine, I just want to go to sleep. Used to be, pretty belligerent when it came to alcohol. The whole thing was driven by machoist, like, let's see how much we can do every night. And, Metallica were known to be particularly like that.
Yes, they were.
Maybe that influence might have been taken a little bit too literal for us, like the people I was with, we just wanted to drink away every single day.
Well, on a tour bus, it's kind of expected and permitted, isn't it? It's there. It's the lubrication of a tour. I mean, I know so many people now, not just musicians, but all sorts of creatives who are sober now, because they have no choice but to be.
Yeah.
They've been through rehab and they tell a lot of war stories, and there's a kind of sadness in them because they can't have fun with other people the way they used to. So you have to watch out for the booze. It's your friend for life if you treat it carefully. But it can very easily become too much for you, and I've seen it happen a few times. So yeah, that's a lesson.
There's always that argument that Metallica were obviously peaking when they were drinking a lot, and they don't drink a lot now, and their output's obviously dropped massively, so you could have a bit of an argument with them there. A quick question was, I watched the Glastonbury set on TV, And a bit of an admission here, I actually cried.
At which part?
But well, when they started with Creeping Death.
With the immensity of it all, or with the terribleness of it all?
No, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't brilliant, but that's not really what I was sort of critiquing them on. I think when I got into them around when that song came out as a 12-inch, I remember buying it in HMV in Leeds. Not many people were into them, and then to see them like now, 30 years later, opening Glastonbury to 100,000 people singing along to Creeping Death, it blew me away. I was like, wow, it's taken 30 years for people to get it. Maybe I was cool. I don't know. I don't really.
No, it's an amazing thing. So every couple of years, I get to interview Lars Ulrich or speak to him for a project. And one of the questions I asked him last time was something along the lines of what you just said. You're a bunch of pricks from the street, basically, who ended up being the biggest metal band there will ever be. In the sense of Metallica, they're sailing uncharted waters, right?
Yeah.
I think I might have mentioned this to you last time we spoke, but there's no one guiding metal bands of that size, Maiden have an idea what they're doing, obviously, and they have their management team. They're a little bit smaller than Metallica in loads of countries. Who's really forging heavy metal, going forward with it and expanding into new territories? Only Metallica. So it'll be interesting to see where they go, because they're pioneers in that sense. I thought there was a lot of hoo-ha about the Glastonbury thing. I thought it was obvious that they'd play there.
I wasn't against the idea. I had friends there that were happy to see them there.
I mean, one festival's much like another, I'm afraid, unless you're 18 years old and it's all new, They're all large corporate events, and that's no bad thing. It's just the way it is. I've seen Metallica probably 5 or 6 times in the last 10 years when they've been playing these massive shows that are all exactly the same. The production is the same. In other words, it's great. It's huge, like a circus. Hetfield always says the same stuff, and he's post-rehab and post-therapy, so what he says now is all very positive, and there's never any swearing, and it's all very kind of it's encouraging, kind of positive stuff. It's fine. It's not particularly dangerous. There's no edge to it, but that's not what Metallica are really about now. And they play these epic shows, and the set list is always at least 50% the same, 60% the same. And they're fine. One show is much like another now, and they're headlining Reading this year, Reading Leeds.
Yeah.
Which, again, and you know exactly what it's going to be like. It'd be fine. It'd be good. Good fun. I don't know how many times you need to see it in your life, but, you're bound to enjoy it the first few times you see it.
We did a show with them a couple of years ago on Sonosphere in Sweden, so I could watch them from the free bar right at the back of the stadium. With the guys from Mastodon, yeah, it was quite entertaining, but
yeah,
I thought they were terrible.
Oh, really? Why? What was so bad?
Well, they were 20 minutes late, they were out of tune. Obviously James talks as if he's in therapy, which I have not been in therapy, so it sounded a little bit weird to me as a Yorkshireman. It was like, oh, whatever, mate,
How's this, son?
And then they do this like 25-minute new song fucking bit in the middle that just bores everybody shitless. Yeah. And I don't want them to play everything old. I do want them to push the boundaries still, but I don't know whether they should do a block of 25 minutes of new stuff, because people just went to the bathroom.
Yeah. I'll tell you what they do every now and then is they'll break out a tune that will blow your mind. And I'm thinking specifically of Dyer's Eve or Disposable Heroes, really. Yeah. I think they did Trapped Under Ice just once. There's a lot of fast picking there, isn't there? In terms of a proper sort of big thrash sounding song. I mean, I saw them play it, would have been Wembley in 2008, and they played Disposable Heroes, and it was immense. I mean, it just destroyed me. And they had this thing where you can download the show a week later, which I did. I listened very carefully to Hetfield's picking. And he is still a complete machine. I mean, his right hand is unbelievable. And that was one of the things that got me into Metallica in the first place. And he could easily sort of half-ass it and strum a bit and whatever and let Kirk Hammett do the work, but he did not. So when they want to pull it out, is my point. When they want to pull it out, they really do. I know Lars is not the powerhouse drummer that we would like to see with Metallica, but that's not really what his role is in Metallica now. His role is as a businessman and an organizer and a arranger, actually. He does a lot of that in the songs.
I appreciate what he does still, not drumming-wise, but keeps the band going. And just to finish on Metallica, Disposable Heroes when I was young was kind of my favourite song. I don't know why.
Oh, mine too. It's because it was just so completely viciously fast and heavy.
Yeah, I loved it.
And everyone loves those creepy kind of war lyrics, don't they? I was born for dying and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Correct. I love that song to this day.
So just to finish, 2015 to me is big for two things. Obviously the centenary of World War One, certain things going on in that, which I'm going to talk about in my next podcast. But some people are saying it's kind of the year of Star Wars because his new film's coming out. Are you into that at all?
I'm very into Star Wars, but I have no faith whatsoever that the new ones will be any good. And that's probably not the filmmaker's fault. It's because I'm not 16 years old.
Yeah, true.
And I think if I were, I'd be all over it and going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Obviously, I'll queue up and I'll watch them as soon as I can. J.J. Abrams has done some good stuff, but we'll see, won't we? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the old cast is in there. That's a good thing. But it all depends on the script, really, doesn't it? I mean, it will be CGI heavy. It will just be the thing that paves the way for the second and third films. Yeah, I mean, I predict a 6 out of 10.
Oh, wow, that's pretty good.
It's Star Wars after all.
See, in my mind, this is the problem I've got. Is you're right. I'm not a kid anymore, and I wish I was. But in my mind, it's only 50 minutes long. It's all Boba Fett kicking the shit out of Ewoks, and that's it. There is no more shit to it than that, and it'd be the best film ever. I'd go watch that 50 times a week. But it's it's not really about me, is it anymore?
It's funny how Boba Fett is this cool character, and yet he has the most embarrassing, pathetic death in any Star Wars film.
But did he die?
It's really pathetic how he dies.
We're going to find out if he didn't die. I don't know. But...
All right, yeah. Well, in the comics, this is how geek I am. He stays for years and years and years, doesn't he? Because you're supposed to digest for 1,000 years in the Sarlacc's belly. It keeps you alive.
Yep.
And apparently he did live for, maybe even escaped. I can't remember.
I'll send you the comic strip of him escaping.
Thank you. Please do.
From 1983.
Good.
So it's not new. All right, Joel, thank you very much. It was excellent.
It's great to speak to you, Dave, and I very much look forward to hearing this hit the airwaves.
It should be launching on Sunday, so I'll send you it via email if you wanted to hear the edit first. I don't know.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, I'd love to, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. Thank you, mate. So, there we have it. My first attempt at a podcast. Thanks to Joel for been patient with me. We kind of fucked up the first attempt at recording last week, and I had to figure out how to record Skype via PC and Mac. None of these programs even warn you about that until you actually start recording. So thanks to Joel for his patience. I realise now that we haven't spoke about everything I wanted to talk about, and you could say that with any conversation you ever have with anyone. It's only until afterwards remember what the fuck you were wanting to talk about. So yeah, the next episode I'm already working on with a very special guest, and a couple of episodes after that I've already got ideas for. So I'm hoping that this is gonna kind of pan out a little bit over the next few months to a steady output of maybe one episode a month. If you want to pick up a copy of the book me and Joel are talking about in this episode, it's called To Live Is To Die, The Life and Death of Metallica's Cliff Burton by Jawbone Publishing. And it's an excellent book with a foreword by Kirk Hammett. As I said before, it's a pretty sad story as you sort of read into how people used to find out about what was going on back then. It took a while for the news to get around. This was the first podcast for both me and Joel, and it's been a bit of a learning curve from when I first had the idea a year ago, then applying my idea to record. And I was told when I was young there's no such thing as a free meal, so if anybody wants to know how I did this, it's up to you to maybe learn as I did, watching a lot of tutorials on YouTube. Yeah, basically trial and error, testing a lot with patient people. And the music in the background now is by a band from Newcastle called Joseph Kerwin, which tied in nicely with the H.P. Lovecraft link, as Joseph Kerwin is a character from Lovecraft's story The Case of Charles Dexter Ward. Some people might know that, some people probably don't give a shit. So yeah, thanks.